Following in the footsteps. Away from the hustle and bustle of campus, the university owns an unregulated dirt running track surrounded by a fenced-off, rarely used soccer field. Located up in the hills, it requires a bit of a hike to reach, but promises a great view of the bay, along with a tranquil running environment. Intrigued, one Saturday afternoon I decided to make the trek up there and check it out for myself. Immediately I could see the appeal. Although the track was nothing special on its own, the way that it was carved out of the hillside and engulfed by a dense forest of trees gave one a sense of being insulated, protected even, from all the distractions of the outside world. Sure, the city below could be seen through a portion of the fence, but it was far enough in the distance to be contained in a makeshift picture frame of fingers. Scenery, nothing more. Here, in this place, things were simpler. An eclectic group of joggers traveling at various speeds populated the track. They all had a particular aura about them, as if there was something universal that had drawn them there. It was hard to put a finger on. They didn't strike me as outcasts, per se, yet they also weren't the typical crowd you might expect to meet at Starbucks. But enough of that. I was there to run, not people watch, so after some preliminary stretching, I set off. Since everyone appeared to be running counterclockwise, I did the same, figuring it best not to make waves. Besides, the choice seemed arbitrary, and I had no particular preference. I don't exactly spend all of my time weighing the pros and cons of right versus left turns, after all. Half a lap in, I noticed a woman running in the opposite direction. Honest mistake. She'll turn around once she realizes. Wait, is that her again? What's her deal? Turn around already! My annoyance grew with each mutual passing, and I began to go out of my way to glare at her smug little face as she trotted by seemingly devoid of all consideration for her fellow man. It had no effect. She was so oblivious to her error and my growing anger that at one point she even politely smiled at me. Perhaps she knew what she was doing all along and did this just to taunt me. Just as I was beginning to resign myself to simply ignoring the woman and trying to enjoy the rest of my time there, I suddenly noticed that there was no longer only one rebel on the track. Newcomers, seeing her as an example, had quite literally followed in her footsteps, making the erroneous assumption that running clockwise was equally acceptable as running counterclockwise. A quick head count confirmed that while I had been distracted by the woman, a nearly 50-50 split had developed between the two groups. Ignoring it was now impossible. Horrified, I could only watch as my generation slowly died off as more and more of us finished our circuits and exited the track for good. Eventually, I remained with only a single comrade. Others would look scornfully as we passed, clearly upset that we would dare to violate the perceived status quo, despite the undeniable fact that counterclockwise was the true direction. This group of upstarts and their movement can never change that. Such was my only consolation as, wearied by my long journey, I saw my own end rapidly approaching. It wasn't long before I was forced to admit that I had nothing left in the tank, so with one last glance of mournful encouragement at my compatriot, I slowed to a walk and moved into the grass. It was over. I had done what I could. I'd held nothing back. Yet, I wondered whether it had been enough. Leaving the track behind me, I turned to look over my shoulder at the lone figure fighting the now heavily clockwise current against him. Keep fighting, brother. Maybe one day they will see. Keep fighting for the CCW.